I am doing well now, so it's so strange to like talk about a record that I started writing in 2022. And
Mhm.
then, there's been 2 years of healing from that. So it's like, it probably is weird to viewers where I'm like, yeah, my new album, but it's like fucked up if you listen to the lyrics.
I'm underneath the surface when you come.
Echoes, it is fantastic to see you. It's been 2.5 years, roughly, since I last got to talk to you when you were releasing, let's call it your first solo Echoes record, maybe. Um, I've shared with you personally or privately before that album blew me away, and I'm a
Oh,
huge fan of that album and of you since that album because I
thank
didn't really
you.
know you before that.
It's
Um,
all good.
a lot has happened in that time. So,
Oh
how are
yeah.
you? How have you been?
I I've been good. I feel like that was like 10 lifetimes ago. It was only 2.5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for having me again. I've been really good. I'm just really excited about this new body of work and this new era, and I've just been having a lot of fun lately. So,
Good, good, awesome. That sets up for many questions when we go into all the meanings behind the songs and the album and all that kind of good stuff. But before we do that, your album comes out, I think, January 17.
hmm
As we're recording this, we are about to head into like the holidays and all that kind of good stuff. Um, are the holidays special to you? Do you get lost in that, or is this just a time to be extra busy and you've got an album coming out, so there's no rest for you?
it's going to be a blend of both. So, I have an album release show on January 15th that I'm starting rehearsals for this week. It is at Resident downtown LA. I'm so excited. It's going to be an intimate performance, and so that's going to be really cool. But I do get like a week off where I get to be just with family and in the woods and doing nothing. So I'm really excited for that. But I also am so excited about being in rehearsals. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a blend.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. So, Affirmations, the previous album was at times loud and in your face. Quiet
Yeah.
at Your Service is at times more fragile, or at least feels that way to me, even when the music can be heavy on some of the songs.
Yeah.
Um, the previous album was all about dealing in a way of about the disappointment you may have become to your younger self. On
hmm
this record, not so much disappointment, like flat out anger at times. And just like last time, I'm not too sure if the antagonist is not yourself again.
Mm.
Help me understand what's the emotion, the key emotion behind this album.
Yeah. So, Quiet in Your Service is a record that is about healing from narcissistic abuse. So, I was in a really toxic relationship where I had felt like I was being quiet in service of this person,
Hmm.
and it has a lot of deeper meanings as well. But throughout the record, it feels kind of like I'm taking my power back, and you hear that if you listen to the record in full. There's a lot of themes about healing from that, and the last song on the album is kind of like reconciling with all of that. It's a song called Tolerance, and it's about how going through what I went through, I like built up a tolerance and I built up this armor and this strength of like reclaiming my sense of self. So the record is really about that healing journey for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Given that this is another autobiographical album, you say that, oh, I'm doing pretty good and I'm feeling pretty happy right now. Does that mean that the next album is going to be like a super upbeat, rainbows, lollipops, and sunshine record?
I everyone always asks me that, and I feel like no, the next record is like actually a lot angrier. I already started working on it. And I've been working on the next record over the last like year and a half actually. And it's definitely a lot heavier and a lot angrier, but that's all I can say about it right now. So I don't know if I'll ever make happy music. Like everyone's like, "Are you ever going to write a happy song?" But I just don't personally like happy
Hmm.
music. I don't choose to listen to it. I don't know. So probably
Yeah,
not. Maybe one day, but probably not.
You say it's nothing, darling. That word.
I remember you telling me last time that it was big step for you to take in being all of a sudden forget about not just happy, but being extremely open and vulnerable for maybe the first time as an artist on such a
Yeah.
broad scale. And it was pretty scary. 2.5 years later, is that less scary? Are you more comfortable? Right? Because you say some very open and honest things on this record.
Yeah, yeah, it's I feel like in my writing I've gotten a lot more comfortable with being vulnerable and honest with my storytelling and my poetry, but it's still very weird for me to like talk about it, because I am doing well now, so it's so strange to like talk about a record that I started writing in 2022. And
Hmm.
then, there's been 2 years of healing from that, so it's like it probably is weird to viewers where I'm like, yeah, my new album, but it's like fucked up if you listen to the lyrics. So yeah, but I feel like that's why I'm okay, is because I can
Right.
like put my pain into this place and heal from it. And also, I had an incredible therapist that I had been working with over the last almost 5 years, and it's just been
Hmm.
really, really good for me and my mental health as a whole. But yeah, I think being vulnerable in my songwriting is something that I do to help heal myself. And then I get a lot of messages that it helps other people feel valid in their experience. So I think that, continues to push me to not be so afraid to be vulnerable, even though I still get really nervous because it's vulnerable topics that I'm singing about. And I'm very aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you mention, getting messages from fans, and yeah, I've seen many comments of people, sharing back to you,
Hmm.
whether or not you have a chance or even an appetite to go through all those comments
I
and what have
do.
you.
I go through every comment. Because I have the YouTube app that notifies me, and I try to reply to all of them. So yeah,
There,
yeah.
yeah, there you go. So seeing that, what is that like? I mean, especially when you, in some cases, very straight. I don't know if that's the right English sentence, but
Hmm.
in a very straightforward way, say, some very raw emotions that for you will mean one very clear thing, a specific episode in your life or an emotion you have to deal with.
Hmm.
People will put their own truth on that song, and they'll tell you like this is helping me, and or this means this to me.
Hmm.
That must be a bit of a mind fuck at times as well, or at the very least overwhelming. How's
Yeah.
that getting all that feedback?
It's definitely intense. Like I don't think people realize that like it has, and not in a bad way, like an emotional effect on me. Like I read that and like I cry because I'm just like, holy shit. Like because
Hmm.
people share very, very vulnerable things back to me. And it's like I think I've maybe said this in our last discussion. It's like when I put a song out into the world, like I'm very conscious that it's going somewhere. But I
Right.
think because I am such like a mundane person. I'm very like introverted and I don't really leave my house. So it's this like really weird mind fuck, if you will, that like it's going out to people because I'm not like I'm hiding in my house, but then like this vulnerable story is going out into the world and touching other people and like, becoming part of their life and their journey. And it's very surreal. And I have to like anytime I'm starting to feel like, oh, like is music like should I be doing this with my life? It's like those things really reaffirm that like my
Hmm.
art has meaning and purpose.
I feel the pain because never going deep enough the way you leave.
When you put your own emotion into a song, like you said earlier, like, being able to do that, that is helping me heal when you create songs. But then what? And I've asked this question to a number of people, songwriters or lyricists in bands that are not afraid to be extremely open and vulnerable. And when you have to then play these songs live, and some of these songs become very popular,
Yeah.
often the most vulnerable, emotional songs resonate the most,
Yeah.
and the fans want to hear those. Is that does that can when you have to play these songs over and over again? Is that always helping you a little bit more, or does that force you to relive those emotions? And I get vastly different answers from different
Yeah.
people. What's that for you?
That's a really good question. I feel like for me, it helps me like really heal from it. It's like going into this other out of body like part of myself. It's like you can, I don't know how to say it. It's like you're acting out this part of your life that
Okay.
was painful, but you're like you're reclaiming it in a way, maybe. I don't and I also think that like when I'm performing, I go into such a meditation that it is very healing for me. So but I'm very careful to not go back into that headspace. Like I do a lot of
Right.
meditation before performing, and a lot of people will say to me like, "Oh, how can you, write such dark things or like perform such a dark thing?" But it's because my like after ritual is like I'm meditating, I'm making sure like to do self-care things because there are times though where it's just the moment you're in, it will be really, I guess, triggering for lack of
Mhm.
better word, and you have to make sure, after that performance you like go have some soup and like call your therapist or your friend,
Yeah.
and like do something for yourself because it that's a very long-winded answer, but yeah, it can be like very very emotional at times. So I don't have like a bad taste in my mouth for performing songs that are highly
Right.
vulnerable. I just make sure that I have like a good after performance ritual. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Now that we are talking about
Yeah.
live shows and your ritual of getting yourself ready and decompressing as well. I haven't had the chance to see you live just yet. I know you are playing shows, obviously. You've got some shows coming up, but um, when can people like me that don't live in LA hope to see you on stages all over?
I'm hoping that we can do that over the next year. That is my goal. I am trying to bring the live show to as many places as I possibly can. I'm working on that right now with my manager and trying to figure out what that's going to look like because I'm so excited to get back on the road. Like, I miss performing so much. I feel like I kind of disappeared for a while with the pandemic and everything.
Right.
And yeah, I'm so ready because I feel like this new record really like deserves to be heard live. It was, written with a lot of live elements in mind. So hopefully over the next year, you can expect to see some Echo shows.
Let's forget about everything that came before this album and Affirmations, where you made some drastic changes in your career. With well, I was gonna say the last two albums, if the new album isn't out yet, but with the previous and the current album, on those two albums alone, you go into different directions. There is a singer-songwriter element to it. There is like trippy electronica, and there's also, some metalcore in there. A live show of Echoes can go into many different directions. When you're thinking about a show, like what should we expect? If you play with different bands on a bill, you could
Mhm.
tailor an Echo show to a heavy rock crowd, and you could tailor to a crowd that wants to, escape in soundscapes and beats. What should we expect?
Definitely more of like a rock show is like what we've been, rehearsing it as. I definitely feel like it's going to be more alternative rock centric compared to the last shows that I had done previously for Echoes. But I'd still want to have a lot of the elements, electronic elements as well, because I feel like even some of the songs on the new record that no one's heard yet have, cinematic elements to it. So I feel
Yeah,
like it'll be I really want it to feel like a very cinematic experience.
this album flows very well and it flies by. Like it feels after 10-15 minutes that you've listened to the whole thing, which obviously it's much longer than that. Everybody's
Yeah.
saying, don't worry about it. Um, when you are in the process of creating this album, you said earlier that a lot of it was written, intended with a live feel or recorded with a live feel. But what
Mm.
about like the storytelling, if you will? I understand where you want to start and end the story from a lyrical perspective, but from a music
Hmm.
perspective, is there a lot of time? Are you somebody that needs a lot of time to figure out, okay, I've got all these songs, what is now the right way to put them all together? Or are you like, I know the story, so I'm kind of working step by step in the story anyways?
I feel like the way I went about putting it in order was by feeling, and they also just kind of naturally, like in my, at least in my perspective, like went in a specific order.
Right.
So I think for me to answer that would be I go by feeling and like which songs felt like they needed to come after the other. So I did play with a few different playlistings, and then there was a moment when we made the interlude because it just felt like it needed something there. And also like there's a lot of hidden meanings that I talk about a lot too, with themes I'm trying to like repeat throughout the record, kind of how it feels to be in a toxic relationship where things
Hmm.
continue to repeat. So it's like you have those little motifs, if you will, that kind of, go throughout the record. So it was more of like a feeling and how to like really build this world sonically by what felt the best, if that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's how I think about it.
Well, every time we get PR statements and what have you, it's always like, "Oh, this is for fans of what have you." And I always find it funny when I see a PR statement about you because I feel like PR teams kind of it's not easy to kind of list like these are the for fans of this because you bring so many different sounds. But one of the bands that was referenced in all these PR statements for this album was Evanescence, and
Hmm.
when I was listening to it, especially on like the heavier songs on the album, I think Over and Over is a great example of that. Again, maybe this is me, projecting because I was like a teenager when Evanescence came out, so that's like a sound
Yeah.
that engraved into
Yeah.
my DNA. But it seems to definitely be there. Like, is that also like was that a big influence that just never until you made some changes in your musical career that just never really could come out in the way that they're doing now?
I feel like I've always had people tell me that my vocal tone is very similar to her, and I
Right.
guess this was the first time I like really leaned into that even
Yeah.
more. I remember, I think I was like, okay, what year? I think the first time I heard them, I was like 8. Yeah, I think I was 8. And I remember being like, oh my God, like this is the most beautiful. Like my dad showed me them. And I might be, hold on, let me fact check this because I like never know time,
This
which
would have
is
been roughly 2000 to make it nice, even numbers.
okay, yeah,
Probably.
7. Oh, I was 7. Okay, so I was like 7. So yeah, that checks out. Usually with time, I'll be like, yeah, like 6 years ago, but it was really like 9 years ago. I don't know. Time, I have
Uh,
like pretty intense ADHD, so time is just like not real for me. With that said, I have always carried that influence throughout, the things I'm listening to and the things that I'm writing. And I was in bands in high school as well, like before Echoes, that were kind of more in that sound. So I feel that this record, I just finally like really dove into that. Not intentionally. I think it is just because we both have such like operatic tones
mhm.
naturally, but I have definitely been compared to her throughout my career, and I take that as very high honor because I really like her vocals. I really look
Yeah.
up to her as a vocalist. So yeah.
Is that also a bit of a is that a sign of maturity, personal maturity that you said like this is the first time that I lean into that more, like being okay with being compared to somebody else and embracing that versus no, I have to be my own thing. Is that something that comes easier now to go like, you know what? I agree. I have a similar tone, and I like that, and I like that. I like that music.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna allow myself to do more of that. Is that something that comes more easy
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. And it's weird because I had people over the years tell me to like not sing as operatic because it wouldn't sell. And so I like was like, okay. So I would like, I don't know, try to be something else, but like that's
Yeah,
like my natural voice. Like I'm not
right.
trying to do that. And like I've had people kind of like not make fun of me, but be like, oh, you sing so like, I don't know, they'll like do, try to mimic me. And
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, but I'm not like doing that on purpose. That's just my voice. So I
yeah,
feel like I finally am just singing like I'm not thinking about what anyone else is telling me for the first time. And I think everyone had good intentions when I was, just starting out. They're like, maybe don't do the opera thing as much because, but I also like fuck that. Like if there's any like young vocalists out there that are listening to this, like don't let anyone tell you how to sing. So I don't know. I feel like I finally like don't give a fuck. So I just am like doing what I want.
There you
So
go. There you go.
that's the energy.
No better way to wrap up this conversation than with that
Hmm.
nice motivational part of just do
Yeah.
whatever the fuck you want to do.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I hope we can see you bring that mentality on stages soon. So I'll keep my fingers crossed and my eyes open for any announcements. Echoes, thank
Yay.
you so much for your time today. I really do
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. And I can't wait for everybody else to discover this album and see content that I hope will be recorded from the release show.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.